Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out here to the Circle B Bar. I'm in a planning retreat with the Board of County Commissioners, and we're talking about systems and processes to make sure that we can keep people safe. And one of the ways that we keep people safe is by standing in the gap between good and evil. This is the second time in less than a week someone shot at and tried to kill our deputies. Last night, the person who shot at us hit our deputy. But it was by the grace of God that whenever he shot through the pants leg and through the boot, and it never, ever, ever hit the deputy's body. But I'll tell you how it happened. And here's the person who did it all. Zachary Stinson. Zachary Stinson is 20 years of age. He has significant, and I underscore significant, mental health issues. So last night, Zachary's, if you will, adopted father, and that's what happened. This gentleman apparently met Zachary back in the day when Zachary was young, agreed to, adopt him or take personal responsibility for him. And Zachary, who is now 20 years of age, was angry. He was angry because the person that agreed to be his adopted father went out on a date with a woman. So when the father came home, Zachary had urinated on his, and we'll call him his father's bed. He had spray painted the entire interior of the house, and he was totally out of control. So the father tells Zachary, I'm leaving for the night. And he starts to get in his car, and Zachary lays down behind the car so that his father can't leave the residence. And that's when the father dials 911. By the time our deputies arrive, Zachary is back in the house. So the deputies are talking to the father when all of a sudden he starts shooting out the front windows, and he shot 4 times. That is one of the rounds that hit Lieutenant Baldwin in the leg. Then he ran to the back of the house and shot out of that window 3 times. On that particular occasion, a Haines City police officer that was backing us up actually saw the fire from the suspect's firearm, from Zachary's firearm, and returned 2 shots into the residence, not striking him. When the first 4 shots were fired, we just knew they came out of a window and never saw Zachary. Of course, SWAT was called. We began to talk with him with a crisis negotiations team. He wouldn't come out. He wouldn't come out. He even dialed 911 a couple of times, demanding to talk to his daddy. So after a period of time when he wouldn't come out, we introduced chemical agent into the house. And after about 30 minutes, at about 4:15 this morning, Zachary came out. And he had a haircut. He actually shaved off all his head, all of the hair off of all of his head. He actually, during the negotiations or during the conversation, said he wanted to do a suicide by cop, that he was dying today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Baker acted Zachary on 10 different occasions. Did you hear me? We've taken him to the hospital from his home on 10 different occasions to get him help. What's happening with the mental health system? Why didn't he get help? We can see where we went back to do follow-ups. We have been to his house on at least 28 different occasions. Some of those 28 different occasions were instigated by us as a follow-up to the Baker Act. So here we've tried to get this significantly mentally ill kid help. We've Baker acted him on 10 different occasions. On 10 different occasions, they've turned him out. So follow me for a second. Ostensibly, what the mental health system said was, well, we're going to give him medication, or we're going to give him some counseling, and we're going to let him wander through life till he finally kills someone else or himself, or creates criminal conduct significant enough for him to end up in prison for the rest of his life. And that's what happened last night. We were fortunate. He didn't hit our deputy significant enough to cause injury or death, or hit any of the Haines City police officers that backed us up. But here's a classic example. I'm on the commission investigating the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, and we're looking at a kid down there. 10 times, 10 separate times plus follow-ups, and that's only the times that he's been Baker acted in this county. I understand, and we've not been able to run these details down this early in the investigation, that he's gotten other mental health help in other locations he's lived. So what are we going to do as a society? Are we going to let people of this caliber continue to wander around? Apparently his father had the guns locked up, not in a safe, but in some kind of a box. Well, he got the guns. He shot at us. He shot at the police. He shot 7 times last night. But the fact remains that there was also rifles in the house with scopes. This all could have been much worse than it was. He had been taken for help. Apparently this adopted father first met him because he had abuse issues as a child, felt sorry for him, and took him in. And the end results are that he tried to kill our deputies last night and our Haines City police officers last night. And we were able to get him out of the house without injuring him. But what's next? Certainly, he's responsible for his conduct, and he's not mentally ill to the point that he didn't know what he was doing. He was well aware of what he was doing. He had an anger management issue because his dad went on a date. He urinated on his dad's bed. He spray painted the inside of the walls. He said, I'm dying tonight. I'm going to commit suicide by cop. He shoots at our deputies. He shoots at our police officers. He strikes my lieutenant. And ultimately, after negotiations, and after his demands weren't met to talk to his daddy, we were able to get him out of the house without injuring him, and he's locked up in the county jail system, charged with several counts of attempted murder of law enforcement officers. Are there any questions?
Sheriff, if he's competent enough to be able to be charged, what would you have the mental health system do if they can't hold him if he's not a danger to others and himself?
Well, the Baker Act says you can't hold him more than 72 hours. But certainly that's a fallacy within the system. That's a weakness during the system. If we have these significantly mentally ill people that are capable of great violence, there needs to be a system and process in place where we can house them safely to protect themselves and others. But we don't. We just let them wander around out here.
There was a system in place that was defunded by the state legislature about 4 years ago, as I understand.
I think it was more than 4 years ago, but I can tell you there was a time when I worked for the sheriff's office when we took people like this to the hospital, and the state said, yep, he's significantly mentally ill. Then we transferred them to a state mental health hospital so that they could receive long-term inpatient services, and they were forced by the court and the system to do that. And between the case law and the courts, and I call them the do-gooders who said, you don't have a right to lock up these folks. We'll just turn them out and they can take their medicine. Well, newsflash, they're not taking their medicine. They're killing themselves. They're killing other people. They're forcing law enforcement in a position to have to defend themselves, and as a result, they die. And then there's another group of people that want to blame law enforcement for protecting themselves. So the frustration abounds here. There were all kinds of warning signs and signals. We took him to the hospital on at least 10 different occasions. We did follow-ups with him, and the end result is, fortunately, no one died while he shot one of my deputies last night.
Do you think it's time to bring back those institutions?
I think it's absolutely time to offer services, in-house services with court orders to those that are significantly mentally ill, so that they don't have the ability to kill themselves or others.
Sheriff, could you show us the picture again of his shoe and talk about how lucky that deputy is?
It's remarkable. I kept asking, well, what about the injury to his foot? And they said, went through the pants leg, went in and out of the boot, and never struck him. I imagine when the adrenaline rush is over, that he'll have a bruise tonight. But he said it was just like somebody had walked up and kicked his leg out from under him. He said, my leg flew back when the bullet hit my shoe, my boot, but it didn't draw blood. It was just the good Lord looking out for us last night, because that bullet could have just as easily been between my deputy's eyes as through the boot.
We've been talking about mental illness now for a while, and it happens a lot with people either shooting deputies, killing other people, doing all kinds of things. And here we are talking about it again. But what can we do to fix it now?
Well, I can tell you what the problem is now. The problem is now there's not a critical mass of significantly mentally ill people. So when one of these horrible events happens, they're seen as isolated events. So there's not a critical mass of people that are injured or creating injuries, so the politicos don't get the energy to act. And it doesn't become an emergency until it happens to you. But it happened to us, and it happens to somebody every day. But we have got to make up our minds that we are going to have systems and processes to help the significantly mentally ill. That we are going to accept the fact that we can put them in, if you will, homes or hospitals or secure programs so that we can get them meaningful help, so that we can deal with these issues, so that we can protect them from themselves and others, or we've got to continue to accept death, injury, and carnage. And quite frankly, it was a mentally ill person last week that shot at one of my deputies. But that shouldn't be a news flash. Normal people don't shoot at the cops. Normal people don't fight at the cops. They're either mean, bad, criminal, or mentally ill, or all combination of all of that. So at the end of the day, we'll continue to stand in the gap between good and evil. Because our deputies arrived to help that father, we were able to protect other people in the community from potentially being injured last night. We risk our lives and we're willing to do it. But there is a way to help reduce those probabilities when we get serious as a society to help those that are significantly mentally ill.
Will you call the governor and say, look, can you do something?
Well, we say that every day. I mean, we have interactions with the legislators, with the community every day. The mental health community, the mental health provider community works with us at the county jail with our limited ability, because our average stay is 28 to 35 days. And we're helping some now that weren't receiving help in the past by bridging over with a local half-cent sales tax for those that are mentally ill. All you have to do is superimpose that it was your son that's significantly mentally ill, that it was your son that was a deputy last night that it was shot, that this father, this adopted father who was trying his best to do what he could and doing good, needed help.
Do we know, you talked about the weapons that were in the house, do we know who owned them and were they locked up? How did he get access to them?
They were, I'm told, at the early stages of the investigation, they were locked in a box, and he forced the box open, is what I'm told. This appeared, we're still searching for the handgun. He apparently threw it in the attic before he gave up. But what we see are 9mm casings on the floor. So it was not, apparently, and I underscore apparently, a 9mm handgun that he was shooting at us with.
And who owned them? Were they owned by his adopted dad?
His adopted dad.
Legally.
Yes.
Was his adopted dad able to give you an idea of how long he'd been off his meds? Because he was not supposed to be.
I don't know, but I can tell you the evidence is clear, and we can get you the exact dates of how many different times we went there and saw behavior where we thought he was capable of hurting himself or someone else. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. And you know why it's frustrating? Because those that can make a difference, those that can make the decisions, aren't the ones going there facing the guns. If these police officers in the state of Florida in the United States and deputies were the decision makers, if they had to face the guns tonight and go sit in a legislative body tomorrow, it would be different. But the legislators aren't coming out tonight and being shot at, or they do something about it. And that's not just in the state of Florida, that's across the nation. This is not a Florida problem or a Polk County problem. This is a national problem.